A-levels, the nightmare of every student vying for a spot in universities around the world, but a necessary milestone to cross. I had attended 2 years of school in preparation for these examinations. Fun times. Imagine waking up at 6 o'clock in the morning every day to arrive at school by 8 o'clock, only to sit through hours of lessons until 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. There were breaks in between, of course, but man, that was pretty tough. Anyhow, I studied mathematics, physics, economics, and further mathematics as my examinable subjects for A-levels. And as a side note, I shall be pronouncing the short form of mathematics as maths or maths from now on, since I cannot allow for confusion between numbers and consumable products that make you high. I did take 2 other subjects as well though, but I'm a little too lazy to delve into them and thus will be leaving them out of this video. My subject combination was considered pretty rare where I live. Most people wouldn't think of taking 2 math subjects, or in particular further maths as a subject, because that just means more calculus and more suffering. To which I would respond, yes, it is true, I attest to that, it is pain. Have you heard of the Euler-Bernoulli equation, if I'm even pronouncing it correctly, or second order differential equations, and solving vectors in n-dimensional spaces? That's what I had to deal with in further maths. Why on earth did I put myself through this? That's crazy. Instead of watching the world burn, I was the one burning for 2 years. But even then, I like to say I don't have any regrets, since well, I had learned things that I would never otherwise have. Maths is an important field of study for engineering, computers, and so much more, and it's beautiful to understand how applicable it is in a range of different scenarios. I took the exams in November 2024, and I would say my schedule was kinda packed. Here's how my calendar looked then. In particular, at one point, I had to sit for 4 papers, all of which were 2 to 3 hours long within a span of 3 days. Pain, pain, and more pain. My first few papers went pretty fine, just the average written paper things. Take a stationery, sit down, do the paper, and leave. Only that I had brought 3 pens and 10 pen ink refills with me around, if you know what I'm talking about. Then came economics paper 1. I went into the exam room pretty chill. I mean, at this point it's just another paper to take. But as I flipped the paper over, I came face to face with the challenge of supermarkets. Tesco and Sainsbury's are grocery companies in the United Kingdom, apparently competing under an oligopolistic market structure, and apparently there's something called the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership. New things I discovered. Okay, actually I'm going on tangents here. The paper was alright, I guess. After the time was up, the invigilators asked us to check if our names were written correctly and whatnot. Well, the standard checks. And they asked us to put additional writing paper into the second page of our answer booklet, which to my knowledge was an anomaly, though I could be wrong. I had assumed I was supposed to put the writing paper inside the booklet where the question numbers matched. So, because this was an important exam, I decided to double check with one of the invigilators just in case, as she came by to collect my paper. Invigilators are at the end of the day human and could very well make mistakes. And also because I had a passing thought about how the invigilators looked like they were bound to mess up somehow. Could I double check that the additional writing paper should be placed in the second page? Yes, why weren't you listening to instructions? Excuse me? Did you have to shout that out to the entire hall? Are you nuts? For starters, I was making sure everything I did was correct, such that I wouldn't mess up a national exam. I was double checking, and you didn't need to be so rude about it, Miss Teacher. I'm not trying to be mean, but she was most definitely a baby boomer, and was probably sick and tired of people, so I can kinda understand why she might misunderstand my worries and react that way. Actually, I don't. She chose to be a teacher. She's paid for this? What? I firmly believe she was trying to humiliate me to feel powerful, considering the other things she did to other students in the same room. Yes, I was not the only one. But unfortunately for her, I believe I'm pretty thick-skinned when it comes to baseless insults, which are very different from constructive criticism. So well, I didn't feel anything other than vindictiveness and just moved on with my life. The next day I had my physics paper, and the day after I had my second economics paper, both of which were pretty alright and went on uneventfully. But what was stressful was the fact that I had another 3-hour further math paper the same day as my second economics paper. Man, my arms were already tired and my brain was fried. And I had to prepare to figure out the equation of a parabolic shelter that Mary decided to build for her lambs. That's wild. I was so anxious right before the exam began. My palms were sweaty, knees weak, arms heavy. There's no vomit though, don't worry. And no spaghetti too, unfortunately. I could hear the clicking of pens and the clock ticking so loudly. You know, the kind of silence where your tinnitus becomes so obvious.
You may begin.
I flipped over the page and came face to face with the questions. Thankfully, the paper wasn't as difficult as I thought it would have, which helped ease my anxiety. Okay, I'm coping again. There was a calculus question that probably took 10 years off my lifespan. I don't know if I can and should reveal the exact question, but just know that there were more letters than there were numbers, so you make what you will out of it. 4 days later, I had the second further math paper, which was on par with the first, and finally, after 9 days of nothingness, I sat for the final exam, and that was the end. I can't even express the amount of sheer joy I had at that point of time. I was free to explore my interests as I wished, a different kind of freedom knowing that an entire month of exams has passed. I'm sure you would have probably felt a similar way before. All I had to do now was wait for my results to be released so that I could start applying to universities, which soon happened 3 months later. I head back to school with all my friends, waiting in line to collect that folder containing our result slips, testimonials, and whatnot. Some were jumping with joy and others seemed sad as they all looked at their grades. When my teacher passed my folder to me, I was surprised to say the least. So much so, I looked up and exclaimed, "Wow!" to 2 strangers who stared at me like I was crazy. I was trying to share my joy with my friend. Oh my gosh, I am so sorry. If you've been watching till now to find out how I did in the exams, I am also so sorry to burst your bubble because I won't be revealing any of my exact grades, at least for now. All I would say is that I did well enough to meet the examination grade requirements for the university courses I was aiming for. This 2-year journey has been so fulfilling, having learned so much about mathematics and myself, and made even more friends along the way. I'm so happy everything turned out the way it did, cause I guess it made me the person I am today. Exams are part and parcel of education, and as much as I hate them, they are kinda important for society. Hold up, I sound like a politician now, don't I? But really, they are there to assess our skills and give us the qualifications we need. If you are about to take the A-level soon, or in fact any other major exam in wherever you live, trust that you've got what it takes to succeed. It's perfectly fine if you don't do well because, well, there's definitely more to life than just exams. But as a word of advice, don't leave any room for regrets, alright? Peace.